The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining today's webinar, The Big Breach, Automating a Fast Recovery from Card and Data Theft. My name is Greg Richards, Director of Marketing for EnableSoft and the moderator for today's event. Just a few in-housekeeping points before we begin. All attendees are in listen-only mode. You can type any questions you do have into the chat box on your screen. We'll answer as many of these as we can at the end of the event. Any unanswered questions will be addressed within 24 hours of the webinar's close. Also, you'll notice throughout the presentation today some polling questions and a survey at the end. We ask and encourage each of you to complete these at your convenience, and if there's time at the end, we'll go ahead and share those results. And now, without further delay, let's introduce today's topic, the next big breach, automating a fast recovery from card and data theft. You'll hear from three guys today. Roel Leving from Stoneham Bank will present just a bit later. Of course, you'll hear from me, Greg Richards from EnableSoft, and you'll also hear from Justin Calhoun, Director of Sales Support, also at EnableSoft. Quick agenda for today. We'll have you out of here in 30 minutes, but first we're going to tell you a bit about who we are. We're going to introduce the reason for today's presentation, the reason we're all here, data automation technology. Roel's going to talk to you a bit about his case study at Stoneham Bank, and then we're going to wrap things up with some Q&A. So who is EnableSoft? Who are we really? Well, EnableSoft is really all about what's possible today. We're an innovator in productivity and efficiency software solutions, Foxtrot 1, which we'll talk about here soon, for about 18 years. We're partnered to nearly 500 banks and credit unions. About a third of those are top 1,000 banks, and about half of those are top 100 performers. So that's a little bit about us, but let's talk more about why we're here today, the issue du jour, and that's the card breach and data breach. Of course, everybody here remembers the Target breach, the mass breach that occurred back in December of 2013. Last week, the Consumer Bankers Association and the Credit Union National Association released some numbers regarding kind of the damage and the implications from that Target breach. As of now, the cost to U.S. banks and credit unions of the Target breach in December is about $200 million. There have been 4 million cards reissued by U.S. community banks. That's just community banks so far since December. Unfortunately, though, only 52% of cards that were compromised in that breach have been replaced so far. The remaining 48% presumably have not been replaced. Hopefully they've been canceled or hot-carded, obviously to protect cardholders. So as I mentioned earlier, we're very fortunate to call nearly 500 banks and credit unions customers. We talk to them often. We talk to them about all sorts of things. One of those is card breaches, and they typically tell us there are 6 things they do in varying order and a varying magnitude following a breach to protect themselves and protect their cardholders and members. The first thing is they identify, obviously, the cards that have been affected in the breach. They adjust limits so that their customers and their members are protected and their exposure is limited once their cards have been compromised. They note those cardholder accounts so that when the cardholder calls in inquiring about their spending limits or they walk into the branch, that the representative or the teller is obviously informed about the recent breach and the adjustments to the spending limits. Clearly, they reissue those cards, our customers do. They cancel or they assign a hot card status to the cards that have been compromised, and then they notify those customers via traditional mail and email. So that's all well and good, but until today, there have been just really 3 traditional approaches to doing all of these things. The first is manually. Of course, that's perhaps bringing people in over a weekend and performing all of these activities by hand. If you have the in-house knowledge and kind of the tribal knowledge, you can hopefully write a custom program to automate this process. That's obviously very knowledge intensive. Or you can outsource to a third party like perhaps your core provider. Unfortunately, that's very resource intensive and frankly, it's very expensive. Or you get Foxtrot. Now we'll talk to you in a minute more about what Foxtrot is, but one thing I want to drive home today is Foxtrot is your break glass in case of emergency answer and solution for card breaches. Foxtrot is software that's ready for you when a breach strikes. It's 100% accurate every time. There's no manual data entry. There's no programming, no working on nights and weekends with Foxtrot 1 after a breach. Foxtrot 1 reduces cardholder exposure and minimizes interchange loss. But what is Foxtrot 1 really? Well, Foxtrot 1 is software, but it works like a digital employee. When we say that, we mean it intelligently performs unstructured manual processes across all cores and card systems. It's business user and IT friendly, which means there's no programming ever. and it works with drag and drop functionality in the presentation layer. What that means is that your business rules are maintained and audit trails are maintained for security purposes. So this is Foxtrot 1. You're going to see a little bit more about it later on. You're going to see Foxtrot 1 in action, but again, Foxtrot 1 essentially integrates data between your core and card platforms and enters and changes data just like you would, but much, much faster. Foxtrot 1 can be scripted before a breach. Again, your break glass in case of emergency solution for card breaches to expedite recovery, and it does much, much more, which we'll talk more about towards the end. So let's now introduce Rule Loving. Rule is from Stoneham Bank in Massachusetts. He's going to talk to you a bit about his case study and how his bank utilized Foxtrot 1 to overcome the target breach. Rule Loving's been with Stoneham for about 14 years. He's got great experience in deposit and transit services and standalone ATM deployment. Without further delay, take it away, Rule.
Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning to those farther west. Just a few reference points. I've been committed to bank operations since April of 1972. I was fortunate to be involved with the deployment of early ATMs, the first local ATM networks, ACH processing, and debit cards. Managing this evolution of electronic products has been a truly educational experience. Facing the challenges of the new technologies and associated risk has both been challenging and rewarding. By seeking out these new technologies to help manage the requirements associated with the risk we are currently facing continues to be an evolving challenge for me. I began as a Foxtrot user in the mid-1990s at my prior bank and continue to utilize the application today. Stoneham Bank is a small two-branch, $450 million bank with an active mortgage origination department, construction and commercial loan department, and we are committed to technology to help deliver the highest level of customer service to our customers in the most efficient possible process. We are committed to being a relationship-based bank, not a product-based bank. We are a use it or lose it bank, notifying customers of dormant online accounts, ATM debit card accounts, deposit accounts, and if these products are not activated, we close or begin charging fees for these products or services. Our branches have both image ATMs and cash recyclers. Our current card base is 90% available, and 90% of the available cards are active each month. We generate around $10 in gross interchange income per active card a month. Our sales average above $5 million a month and $60,000 in interchange income. We have developed a consistent process to respond to the Visa compromised card list that we receive. We constantly evaluate the process over time, and as the conditions of the compromise change, we change our process. We do reissue cards, but the process we use during the transition from a compromised status to a hot card status is devoted to maintaining the highest level of customer service, mitigating the impact of our interchange income, and applying suitable risk standards for fraud loss. When we receive the list from Visa, we compare this list to our active cards in the data warehouse. For cards that are active and have not been compromised earlier, we create a letter to the customer, a file that adds a note in our customer contact system, and an email file that is used to contact those customers who have an email on file. We use Foxtrot to reissue new cards to those in an active status, and then we use it to add 2 user codes on each card to identify that it is a compromised card and that the date of the compromise. Using these fields, we track these cards over time until they're hot carded. We also use Foxtrot to add a note in the card file so that the company that monitors our cards for fraudulent activity has access to the compromised information. 30 days after the compromise, we use Foxtrot to hot card these remaining cards. Once a new card has been issued, we use Foxtrot to lower the daily limits for signature transactions to 0 and reduce PIN limits from $3,500 a day to $1,500 a day. Depending on the number of compromised cards, this process can take as little as a few minutes to a number of hours. The target compromise affected just under 900 cards, or about 12% of the active card base. We started the process late on a Friday afternoon and finished it up. We did nothing over the weekend, but finished it up on Monday morning. The major impact was the doubling of calls to our call center in December, the additional expense to reissue the cards, and about a 5% reduction in interchange income for the month. We did not notice any additional fraudulent activity between November and December. During the many years I've utilized Foxtrot, I've enjoyed the flexibility that it provides. We use it on a daily basis to move information for systems that are not integrated to the core system and other products as well. Our goal is to present to our customer-facing staff easy access to critical information required to service customers quickly and efficiently. As new technology is deployed, integrating it into all systems is critical, and Foxtrot has been there to smooth over any gaps. As you watch the following demo, I believe it is important to note that Foxtrot can offer the opportunity to customize a process in a way that takes advantage of any existing core system asset, but fill in any gaps that are needed. It can be a complete system or a complementary asset, or any measure in between. Thank you for your attention, and I'll turn it back over to Justin for questions or the demo. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roel, for sharing your insights and experience with our technology, and it's very valuable, to everybody to hear, real-world examples. So thank you very much for that. And so for the next section here, for the next couple of minutes, I will share my screen here. We're going to take a look at the Foxtrot One application, and then go through a sample scenario of what you may experience during a breach event. So we'll take a data file from Visa, and then we'll load that into Foxtrot and do some processing, and I'll explain more in a second. However, first off, the Foxtrot One application is just going to be installed locally on a desktop. So, you can classify it as, your desktop automation technology. But when you launch the application, you'll see that it's really made into 4 different areas. We have our menu at the top here. We'll give you access to all of your commands and script editing tools. And below that is our script center. And this is where you're going to spend most of your time building your scripts. So it has a selector tool, which is what you use to drag and drop onto the items, like the buttons and fields that you want to interact with. And then you'll have a actions list below that. We won't go through every single one of them today, but you can see they're broken down into categories of what they can help you automate. So you have a data section that'll help you transform data and do calculations, and then display messages to help you interact with users that are running scripts, error handling, file and folder management, and the list goes on and on. There's about 300 actions altogether that the user can select from to help automate any task on their desktop. So below the script center is our view center. The view center is mainly used to work with your data source. So, in our example with the card breach here, that we're going to be working with the file from Visa. So we would load that file into Foxtrot to be able to move that data into all these other systems. So here's our view center for that. You can see that I have a file loaded, which we'll get into in a moment. And below the view center is our run center. So once we are ready to run our process, we have our data loaded and script built. We come down here to hit the big run button. You can also view statistics as it's processing, different run options, speed control, and so on. That's the basics of the application, and really we intend our product to be user-friendly. There's no programming involved. It's all in one page, and it's all drag and drop scripting. So there's no syntax to learn or anything like that. So let's just go through a sample process today for our card breach scenario. Now, you may or may not experience this exact process, but how we've kind of mapped it out today is that we're going to receive the file from Visa. We're going to load that into our Foxtrot application. And then Foxtrot is going to use that data to query for the account in our CRM. And in today's case, this is a Internet Explorer-based system. And it's going to interact with it by just searching for the account number here and then going into an account, modifying it. So let's just open up an account here. We're going to have Foxtrot modify the account. change the limits, and then we're going to notate the account as far as what we've done today with some customized information and user code data and error code data. And then after it's done processing all of these accounts in our CRM, it's going to go over to our card ordering platform, which is going to launch automatically, and then it's going to reorder all of our cards that we need to. And once it's complete there, it's going to take all that data that we've aggregated, from our CRM and our card order platform. It's going to go and either email the user, if there's the email listed, or maybe you want to print out custom letters. So we're going to actually show you how we would go through and open up a Word document and do a mail merge and print out letters for our customers. Okay. So first of all, what we want to do is just show you the technique that we use to build these scripts. Okay, so what I'm going to do, the first thing what we do is just open up that data file. So I'm going to come down here to Open Data, and you can navigate to anywhere the data may reside, out on the network or a local drive. And here's our file that we're going to be working with today. So it's a very basic file format. The first row is all your field names. All your subsequent rows is your account data. So we click on the file, we click on Open. So now you can see it loads that file into the View Center. I'm looking at that record number 1 of the 10 records that were in there. And then we're going to train Foxtrot on how to query the CRM application. Now keep in mind, this application here could be anything in your environment, anything from a web-based application, Windows, emulator screens. It doesn't matter what type of system that you have. We're going to be able to use the same technique to automate tasks within it. And to do that, we use our drag and drop selector tool. So if I want to send data from our file here that has an account number in it to this field here, that's what we're going to query with, simply drag and drop onto that field. And Foxtrot gives us an action builder window. We can select the action we want to use. We want to send data from our file to the screen, so I select Send Data. And then I'm going to click on our expression builder to gain access to our file field. And then I select the field we want to send. And there's some other format options, some keystroke options, but simply just click OK, and then you've built your first action in your script. So now I've sent data to that field, and then now I can easily just drag and drop onto the Go button. Tell Foxtrot to click that, and we'll click Modify. And then, so you're just training your new digital employee, right, to how to go through and query for an account and modify it. Now, during this drag and drop process, Foxtrot's actually having a conversation with the application. We're trying to pick up all the details that are related to your application. So we go in, we look at what type of system it is, what type of page it is, what type of field it is, and then we present the user with what you can do with it. But behind the scenes, we're having that intimate conversation so we know we're working with the right application, the right page at the right time every single time. So this really goes into our industrial strength algorithms that keep Foxtrot on the rails. All right, so here we would adjust the limit. So I'll just do a send data, and you can type in what limits you want it to adjust to, and hit OK. So using that same technique, you can see I've built an entire script here. I'll scroll down and just show you some of the actions that we're going to walk through with that same technique. So let me go ahead and cancel out, and then we'll rewind our script up to the top. I can just delete those actions we just built. Now I'm just going to hit the Run button to start the process. And now you can kind of follow along with Foxtrot where it goes action by action and then updates these accounts. And then it's going to loop through, as you can follow along at the bottom here, it's going to go through records 1 through 10 to modify the account first. And just loops through automatically. Now your application is seeing Foxtrot as a user making these changes. So we're not bypassing any security rules or anything like that. It's actually just using my user profile to make these changes. So all your audit trails are still intact to say who made these and when they were made and so on. Now the beauty of going through the front end like this, you don't have to wait on anybody to build you a custom program, or maybe have long lead times in your IT division. Our technology is really going to enable non-technical users to build these scripts real time. So now you can see we got done processing on the CRM. It's navigated over to our card ordering system, and now it's ordering all those cards for these same accounts. So it goes through another, in this scenario, our card system is not integrated to our core, so it's just going through our, our ancillary product, using the same data. It's going to disperse it into fields I designated and walk through that process of looping through each and every card. All right, so it's going to go through it, closed our application, and now it's going to go through our Word document where it's launching the Word document, and then we went ahead and processed and printed all of the notification letters, so they'll be down waiting at my printer for somebody to go in and, of course, mail out. Now, some folks have systems where you just have to set a flag where it'll print letters, but we want to show you that Foxtrot has the capability to interact with any type of application in your environment. It doesn't matter if it's an Office application, so your Excel environment, Microsoft Word, PDF forms. You can automate virtually any task. So at the end, I get a little success message saying, okay, all of my compromised card accounts have been processed, all the laminates have been updated, notated, ordered, and letters are printed and emailed. So that was a little sample of how we can assist you and how specifically Foxtrot will be able to automate tasks in your environment. So if you want to customize your solution, to meet your demand, this is a tool that can help you do that. All right. Well, with that being said, what I'll do, I'm going to turn it back over to Greg here to help conclude the session.
Okay. Thank you, Justin, very much for that demo. I'll get us back over to the presentation here. So we talked a lot today about what Foxtrot One is and how it helps reduce, obviously, the time and the effort and the cost associated with recovering from a mass breach. Foxtrot One is much, much more than that. These are really digital employees, Foxtrot One is. That automates literally hundreds of tasks for our nearly 500 bank and credit union customers throughout the world. When we talk about some of those things, we talk about Foxtrot One automating data entry, like account creation, posting tax and escrow information. Data maintenance, one of the most common applications for Foxtrot One inside banks and credit unions, is automatically updating officer code changes, as well as applying and waiving fees and adjusting interest rates. And then data integration, not unlike what we've just seen here today, onboarding loans by integrating your core and your LOS, general ledger posting, cash management. Really, the list goes on and on as far as the number of uses and applications for Foxtrot One. So we have just a few minutes remaining, fortunately, so we'd like to turn it over to you at this point. We've received a few good questions throughout the webinar, and at this point I'd like to go ahead and read a few of those. This one I'll probably direct to Justin. One question is, will Foxtrot work with green screen and Internet Explorer at the same time?
Yes, that's a very common question that we get. How flexible is our application? And today we worked with web pages and Windows-based applications, but it's the same the same process to work with green screens. So we can essentially extract data from a green screen and input it into your browser system, or run processes on green screens just like web pages. So our emulator technology has been around for the last 18 years. That's where we got the start of our business. So it's a very, very solid product, and so essentially, yes, we can work with emulator screens.
Okay. Next question also for Justin. We'll probably get 3 in here. Can you automate the running of the scripts?
Oh, sure. So lights out. I mean, everybody wants to be able to schedule a script to run and then go through and then have the process done by the time they get into work. And we absolutely support that, and so we go through and work with Windows Task Scheduler to schedule the scripts, and we do support command line automation, as well as with some other triggers that you can set up, to say if a file appears, then do this, and those types of things. So great question.
Okay. Thanks, Justin. Last question here, also for Justin. What happens if there's an error?
Yeah, error handling, obviously we go in hand with lights out, just in case something were to happen, what will Foxtrot do? And that's really where our application really kind of shines, is that you can configure the logic that you would, just as if you had a new employee sitting there. What would they do if this error occurs? So you can have some default error handling where maybe the application's not running and we want to email the admin, so it can take a screenshot and email the admin of what's going on, or maybe just a summary report of all the accounts that had errors during processing. So it's very flexible. So you can either do more of an output spreadsheet style error report or a real-time notification. So a lot of different options there.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Justin. We'll go ahead and navigate to the next slide here. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We asked for 30 minutes, and we'll keep our word here, and we'll have you out in a half hour. But before we conclude today, there's really 3 steps that we'd like to communicate to each of you and ask. And step number 1 here, the next step, is to contact EnableSoft for a proof of concept. And that's really our opportunity to prove the power of Foxtrot 1 before you buy it. We'll install Foxtrot 1 on your system. We will solve a real data-related challenge that you're dealing with, and hopefully be able to prove the power of Foxtrot in your environment. That's totally free of charge, and we encourage everybody on this call to take advantage of that today. Step 2 is to download this presentation. We'll send it out to you. You'll each receive a thank you email probably within about an hour or so, thanking you for attending today. Included in that email will be a link to today's presentation. We encourage each of you to download that. And then share the information. Take that presentation and share it with operations, IT, lending. Again, this is a very powerful solution, not just for credit breach, but also for onboarding loans and for issuing credit cards and updating loan officer information and you name it. So we encourage you to share that information. If you'd like to contact us directly, here's our contact information. You can reach us at 800-215-9397, or you can certainly reach us by email or on the web. And finally, again, thank you everyone for attending. We appreciate you giving us this time. We know everyone is busy, so we're grateful for the 30 minutes you gave us today. We want to leave you with a quote, and it's from Henry Ford, who is not a banker, but knew something about efficiency nonetheless. And it says, if you need a solution and don't buy it, then ultimately you'll find you have paid for it and don't own it. And certainly that's true here in the business processes that we've talked about today with credit card and debit card breaches, and for many other things moving forward. So please keep that in mind. Thank you again, and everybody have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.